for anybody else that's missing. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Leza Lafferty. I'm a development officer for TPAS Scotland. I'm going to talk to you about me starting TPAS, and then we've got Dolly, Dolina Morrison, and Dolly started with us maybe about a year ago, Dolly, or as long as that? Not sure.
July last year, so not
July
much
last year. That's been quick, hasn't it? So we're kind of the two new members of TPAS. So it's just to kind of talk to you, because I assume a lot of people here are quite new as well, because obviously it's been a bit of a different experience for us all. So my background was I've worked in housing since 1992, and majority of that time I was a housing officer. But during being a housing officer, tenant participation was one of my roles, because it was quite a small organisation, and it was something that I always really enjoyed doing. So I started with TPAS, decided to stop being a housing officer. I saw a job with TPAS, went for it, and started with TPAS in April 2019. And I was based in Stirling, and Stirling had quite a good tenants group already established, an RTO, and I started working closely with them, so I kind of worked more with them rather than the staff. However, there was a lot of staff in Stirling who didn't know anything about tenant participation, and because there was somebody there from TPAS, they thought, oh, you deal with tenant participation, I don't need to deal with it. So I was trying to kind of educate the staff there, the housing officers and that there as well. And because I was actually based in Stirling office, I sat with a lot of them, so that was really helpful, sitting in amongst them, because they would hear me talking about things, they would see me putting things in the newsletter and whatever, and some of them would say, actually, I'm quite interested in that, and it ended up some of them were coming along with me to the tenants meetings, and the tenants got to meet some of the housing officers, which amazed me because some of them had never met their housing officer before. Because in Stirling, the housing officers they only dealt with rent arrears, so they only ever got to meet their housing officer if they fell into rent arrears, which I don't think is probably the kind of right road to go down, because it's nice to know who's in your houses, and it's good to have that good relationship with your housing officer. So there was a bit of work there to be done in Stirling. But then the post in Stirling was always just a contract, so it was always just temporary. And although I really loved it, there was always that panic in the back of my head that that post was going to end, and I would need to find something permanent. Plus it was a bit of a journey as well, because I live in Glasgow, so I was having to travel through every day. But then a permanent post came up with TPAS, because one of our colleagues, Dougie, he left, and thankfully I get slotted into that. So I'm now delighted to say I'm a permanent member of staff with TPAS, so yay, because it's a really good company to work with. Tenant participation for me is all about getting to know the tenants and speaking to tenants. A lot of people think, oh, we're criticising other people that work in the department and the housing officers and how they do things, and the repairs officers and how they do things, but we're not. We're just trying to get them to listen to the tenants. And that was one of the things that amazed me when I worked in Stirling, was there was so many officers said to me, I don't like talking to tenants. And I just thought, well, why are you in this job? Do you know what I mean? Because I think if you work in housing, you need to speak to your customers, and your customers are your tenants. You only work in a bank and say, I don't like speaking to customers, and sit in the front of the office every day speaking to your customers. So I think your tenants are your customers, and you do need to listen to them. And they do bring up a lot of good points. And the other one's the experience that we all go home at night. We maybe don't, we see the kind of office side of things, but we don't experience what it's like to get somebody to come in and do a repair. And we need to kind of listen to their experience. So it's really important. Just keep talking to your tenants and listen to what they say we're not doing well. And they're not criticising, they're just wanting to make things better. And if they make things better, then your job is easier as well, because your tenant satisfaction goes up. So I think TP has got, it's like a domino effect. If you get your TP right, then I think everything else falls into place. But it's trying to get maybe other officers and stuff sometimes learning from that as well. So sometimes there's a bit of training there that you need to do with the staff that's already there, as well as with your tenants as well. So it's building that relationship. Lockdown has obviously made everything a lot different, because our job as well, we're used to face. We love going out and meeting people, and then all of a sudden we weren't allowed to do that anymore, and we've had to do this. We've had to change the way that we've done things. So I obviously started before lockdown, but now I'm kind of working with different organisations that haven't done anything, any kind of TP, and now they're saying, actually, this has went on a bit longer than we thought, so we need to try and do something. So now they're trying to say to their tenants, would you like to do this? And of course, the tenants are coming back and saying no, because they're not used to it. Some of them are saying, no, I'd rather wait until we do face-to-face, and that's fine. But I think we need to use this as an opportunity for the future to say, are we going to continue doing it like this? Are we going to go back to face, or are we going to do a blended approach as well? And again, it's listening to your tenants and seeing what they prefer. So I've just done a survey for an organisation out in Cumbernauld, and their tenants have all came back saying they don't want to do it online. A lot of them are maybe doing their work online as well, so they don't want to do something else online, and maybe homeschooling and stuff and doing it online. So they just don't want to do it online. So we need to try and think about, right, okay, if we want to do it face to face, how are we going to be able to do that? And maybe come the summertime, you never know, we might get a bit of good weather, we might be able to do something outside with them, just do a wee kind of meet and greet or something like that. But it depends how the restrictions go as well. But I think it's going to be quite a long time before we can actually go back to having like proper tenant meetings in small rooms kind of thing. I think it's never going to go back to that way completely. So it's kind of thinking about how we adapt things, so that we can do our job and so the tenants can still get an input as well. So recommendations I would say to people is try and kind of encourage everybody to see TP as being part of their role. It's not just a TP officer, and it's not just tenants, it's everybody should have it in their job description. So right up from your managing directors, right down to your trainee that's just starting. And I always say, get in and speak to your tenants, your new tenants. As soon as they become new tenants, make it part of their sign-up package. Do you want to be involved in tenant participation? How much do you want to get involved? Even if they just want a telephone survey. Some people might say they don't want involvement at all, and that's absolutely fine. Other people might say, actually, I'm quite interested in that. So make sure you get your kind of list of people that are interested. And if something comes up that you think might interest them, just give them a wee phone and say, do you want to be part of this? So it's about getting everybody involved and making sure everybody realises they've got a role in this as well. And I think that was one thing about lockdown as well, that when housing officers were doing the welfare calls, or whoever was doing the welfare calls, they were talking to their tenants and they were getting to know them a bit better as well. And that's a really, really good opportunity to say, actually, you'd be a good person to have on our communications focus group, or maybe you'd want to get involved in the newsletter, or maybe you want to do this or whatever. So that was a good opportunity to kind of record what they were picking up in the welfare calls. And it was also a good opportunity to kind of pick up on some issues that maybe some people were having. A lot of people were saying they weren't coping very well during lockdown, and they were dealing with things like loneliness, or they'd lost their care support package and stuff like that. So there's opportunities there for people to get a wee bit more involved and maybe think, actually, that's something that we would like to hear about, and our tenants are kind of dealing with just now. So that's a wee bit from me. Hopefully I've not went on too long there. Now we'll listen to Dolly, and Dolly's obviously got a bit of a different experience from me, because Dolly started right in the middle, right before, just when lockdown started. So I'll go quiet now and I'll let you speak to Dolly.
Hi folks. Well, I'm apologising now if a dog starts barking or a cat tail comes along the screen at some point. So apologies now for that. Well, my name's Dolly Morrison, and I'm the Tenant Participation Officer for the Western Isles, and I work for Hebridean Housing Partnership. And as Leza says, I'm just new to the post, so I started in July. So I kind of started in the thick of it. My interview was online, which is very odd. So, you know, straight away I've kind of been thrown into this kind of platform of talking like this, which is very strange because it's usually face to face. So where I live in the Western Isles, it's kind of geographically difficult anyway for TP, because you're looking at close to 12 separate islands, and some of them you have to get ferries to. And of course, TP, one of the first kind of most important aspects is building a relationship with tenants. So coming in and being unable to kind of basically have face-to-face conversations has made it incredibly difficult for me. I think that's probably one of my most difficult hurdles. But in other ways, I myself have lived in social housing all my life, and I was lucky enough, some might not say it, but the largest housing estate in the Western Isles I lived. So, and it's still the largest housing estate. So I do have access to a lot of tenants myself that I've known, be it related or, you know, just being friends. So my background is I first took an interest in social housing when I joined the Clarence Community Association, and that kind of opened the door for things like TPAS and a housing group here called the Forum, the Western Isles Forum, which kind of looked, and that's when I kind of got more and more scrutiny and focus groups, which led to a deeper interest in, you know, housing issues and community, and that led to community development. So that's what I was doing prior to the post at TP with TP. So I was a community development worker, which was a really good rewarding job. But of course that again gives you an opportunity to kind of engage with tenants. And then the TP job came up, and lucky for them, they hired me. Or should I say, lucky for me, they hired me. They haven't realised I'm the Del Boy of TP in the Western Isles. But so with the development post, you know, we had lots of Cayley copies and signposting, which right now is kind of a lot of my initial start with TP was tenants would come to me and I would have to signpost. That was the initial start. So I don't know how people in your areas react to newsletters and things like that. There wasn't much engagement. They weren't getting back to me, you know, no matter how I put up the newsletters, they weren't coming to me. So I decided to kind of go for the social media. So I put a TPAS site up for the Western Isles on Facebook, which engaged about 200 people straight away, which is pretty good. And I've just been updating that. But again, people aren't really too interested in Facebook. That's kind of, I think there's a certain amount of kind of saturation of all this kind of digital stuff, be it social or webinars. I think there's kind of been a wee bit of a cut-off point now with people. But the site has kind of grown a wee bit. So that's quite good. I mean, that's one step. And of course, through that, through my own Facebook site, I then kind of established a tenants panel, so a people's panel. So I have about 55 people, 50 to 55 people who I can go to with light questions. I don't know how your experience is, but generally I find people have already been snagged who want to go further into community work. So it's difficult for me to kind of draw people into TP. And of course, from the beginning, I was relying on the housing officers. And of course, the housing officers have had more of a complicated situation. Although they have been talking to the tenants, well, they had been in the initial stages, TP wasn't really at the front of their kind of what was best for the tenants at that time. So there was an issue with data. So I wasn't able to get the numbers, but fortunately now I'm able to get numbers so I can access tenants, which is great. So this is my next step, and my next big challenge is kind of talking to over 2,200 tenants and get their opinions, and hopefully maybe I'll get 10 interested if I'm lucky. But so the People's Panel is now there for HHP to access on a limited amount of kind of questions. These guys don't want to be part of a kind of official group. So hopefully, as time goes on, maybe they'll take an interest in that. So, I mean, for me, the future for TP in the Western Isles, due to the kind of the area that we're in, and some of it isn't kind of, some people don't have very good internet. The future TP here is definitely going to be more blended. So it'll be a combination of digital and face-to-face. Because I'm new to the post, people don't, although I'm an islander, they still don't know too much about TP, and they still prefer that kind of face-to-face interaction. And I think a lot of people are craving that more now, although you do have that other section of tenants who really kind of embrace this whole digital platform. And it's very useful for, say, people in the Southern Isles who can't come up to the mainland. And I think it's more access. You know, there's a big difference between putting on a meeting like this. I mean, look at us, we're from all parts of Scotland, you know, and you don't have to travel. It makes a huge difference, and it makes it more kind of welcoming and easier for people to kind of participate. And that's been a massive a massive personal benefit to me as well has been, since I'm so new to the post and new to all kinds of, you know, jargon and buzzwords and legislation, a massive kind of benefit to me has been this platform where we have all these brilliant TPAS webinars. And, you know, it's been very kind of, the information, you know, from so many different people and so many different areas and organisations, it's both been so informative but so inspirational as well, to kind of, you know, apply what's working in one area to another and sharing these ideas. So, you know, as a fledgling TP officer, you know, I've found the past several months quite challenging and frustrating, but very rewarding. Challenging and, you know, access to tenants and developing relationships, but so rewarding in the wealth of experience and knowledge that I've gained through such sites as this. And, you know, the word is, I suppose, networking, you know, to have all this kind of access to people who have experienced, you know, so many different aspects of TP. But other than that, that's about me starting, and I'm still kind of new to it. I'm still trying to kind of learn as much as I can. But I mean, my last kind of question to you guys is, what have you found rewarding and challenging during this particular time?
I think for me, I've taken over someone else's role. So I've only just come into this. I'm a housing officer. We're really lucky in that we're a community-based housing association. So we do a huge amount of stuff with tenants anyway. So whilst we get a lot of engagement from tenants and a lot of chats with tenants, as soon as you try to do something organised, it becomes very much more difficult. Oh no, I didn't be wanting to be doing that. Oh, you want me to look at a policy? No, I can't be doing that. We also have, because it's Muir House, we have quite a high level of poverty in the area. So trying to access internet for people, trying to access, you know, a lot of the people who were involved with our tenant improvement group and our tenant participation tended to be older, they tended to be retired. And the minute we started, you know, mentioning, well, we'll get you tablets and, you know, we can get you signed up, we'll get you dongles. No, forget it. So we've done lots of kind of phone calls and lots of chats, but trying to get everybody together has been really, really difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stephanie. I think sometimes it's a bit of the unknown. A lot of our tenants initially, we were saying, let's try and get you online. And a lot of them were saying, oh, I don't like computers, I don't do computers. And then they started doing it with their families and friends because they realised they couldn't. And I think a lot of them kind of thought, actually, this is better than I thought. So I think sometimes it's just a wee confidence thing there for them because they've never done something before. And once they've done it, I mean, you probably, if you've been to any other webinars that the tenants come along, there's a lot of older tenants there that have came along, and they might not hold their cameras right and stuff like that, but they're there, and they take part, and a lot of them love it because they've been shielding, they've not been out for months and months and months. So I think it's just a confidence thing as well. But what you can do is, I mean, a lot of times if you're trying to arrange a meeting with people, just make sure they know it's not formal. It doesn't need to be a formal meeting. You could just call it a coffee and a chat or something like that. I know there's a couple of housing associations out there that I think they've sent them a tea bag and a scone and then they've sat and had a cuppa and they've joined in that way. I done a quiz with my tenants as well. I think I made it too hard for them though, but it's because they all knew more about housing than me. And that was just another bit of fun as well. So I think it's just trying to kind of change it from being a formal meeting, and then after you've had a couple informal, then you can gradually make it a wee bit more formal, because then people start saying, actually, see, while I'm here, can I talk to you about this that happened or that happened, and then you can pick it up from there. So
I think it's a balance as well. You
Yeah.
know, for it's that formality, because the minute you mention office bearers, that
Yeah.
puts people off straight away. But I think you do have to go in with that slightly softer touch. As long as you're getting the information from the tenants, I think it's the crucial thing to know how they're feeling, and then you can go from there.
Yeah. Louise, did you have your hand up there?
I did, yeah. My mouse is playing up, so I've taken it down because it'll take me so long to actually remove it. So basically at SPHA, we're obviously based in the Scottish border, so we're quite a rural area as well, probably a little bit different from yours, Delina, but still we're a large geographical area, so we always have had hard to reach groups anyway, and that doesn't necessarily mean geography wise, because we're quite good at going out there and doing road shows and things like that in lots of different areas. But when we went into lockdown just over a year ago, I'd lost my dad a week before, 2 weeks before, I think, lockdown. And my first day back in the office was sitting here in my house on the 23rd of March as a business manager for our chief exec, Julia Malloy. So I worked for her at that time. We have one comms officer, and our tenant participation manager, Alison Notman, she left. She retired in the May. So we kind of had this kind of, nobody knows what's happening. She'd gone. We were all kind of up in the air. So I was asked to kind of come in, and 3 of us have started like a tech team. So it's tenant engagement team. So I do marketing and tenant engagement, and Jen, my colleague, she does comms, and Catherine manages us. And we then took a real hold on marketing and comms, because comms was really critical, especially our social media side, and just really upping the game on that basically. One of our key priorities, and which is the one that I led on, was getting our tenants organisations, SBTO they're known as, and we have around about 15 to 20 tenants already who are very dedicated. Many have been on for years. The idea was to get them online basically, because they were used to coming in on the Tuesday nights every month and having a buffet and a blether, you know, and then they weren't, that had just stopped. So for a few months we didn't have a lot of contact, so we were aware we didn't want to lose them, and we did lose a couple, unfortunately. And I think the reason we lost them was because they were really against the digital. They were just sort of like, nah, this isn't for us. However, we had a few that we thought would be really against digital as well, and we really managed to work with them really hard, online training, testing, more training and testing, and working, getting them on Teams. So we've now got our whole tenants organisation on Teams, which has been fantastic. And then obviously we've delivered through Connect in Scotland as well. So we've delivered about roughly 200 tenants we've got online for that. So there's been huge, and digital for us has been a game changer. You know, you're saying about these meetings. I mean, I couldn't do my job at all. None of us could do our jobs if we didn't have this facility. And we've noticed that you know, we're trying to target younger tenants, and we're kind of hoping that the digital side might target younger tenants better, because sometimes they don't want to leave their house. They're busy. Everybody's busy. Even when we've got nothing to do, we're busy. And they kind of just, you know, that engagement should pick up, and we're hoping that we're going to do some young people things. But the older generation have been amazing. They've just adapted and got on, and been really grateful that they can actually see each other face to face. But don't get me wrong, they do want to go back to the buffets at some point, and I get that. So it's been a bit of a game changer for us, and it's been really good. I'm not permanent in my role. My role finishes at it's been extended about 3 or 4 times. I was meant to finish in October, but it's until the end of May, and then there'll be role changes and some restructure. So that may or may not be good for me. I'll say no more. So I'm just waiting to find out a bit more about that. But in terms of TP, we've got lots to do and lots of satisfaction to improve, and same as everybody. So I'm learning. So yeah, looking for lots of tips and happy to meet folk and obviously share ideas and kind of work out how we can do things a bit better, really. So
yeah, well, we've kind of mentioned the webinars and like the disco chats that we're doing. The disco chats are like just like a wee half-hour thing that we kind of do, but then the webinars are more, we'll have a speaker and we'll have a presentation. It'll be a wee bit more formal, but you do learn so much, and it's as Dolly says, it's like people from all over Scotland. Sometimes we've got people from supporting communities in Northern Ireland come and join us as well. You might have people from TPAS England come along, so you're learning from all different parts of the country. So if anybody's not been along to any of our webinars and you want to be added to the list, you'll probably find that Elaine's maybe sending it on to managers and stuff like that. But if you've not been included, just send either myself or Elaine a wee email, and we'll make sure that you're added on, so you know. All the information's on our website as well. Oh, there's another newbie member.
Yeah, we have Rennie here. Rennie's off school sick today, so this is an external meeting. This isn't Mummy's people that she speaks to every day. You don't know these people.
I hope he's feeling better soon.
He's fine. It's just tummy bugs, and then they've got rules for 48 hours. So my other one's at school. You're right about the events, Leza, that you've been putting on. I mean, the fact that you can actually have people from all over the UK attending them is fantastic. So it opens up. I was at an event yesterday with Tony, and it was brilliant. It was a last in a series of some of the events that he's been doing, and I just kind of cottoned on a bit late, but he's going to do them again, and that was really interesting. There's lots of stuff to pick up on, isn't there? And lots of support, which is really good. And
the thing about TPAS as well is you'll probably find that we're very informal. Do you know what I mean? It is just like this, that we can have a wee chat. So there's nice. No worries about you coming along or whatever. Is there any more questions before we finish up? Or anything anybody's really struggling with or whatever that? Grant, you want to ask a question?
I think it was just the girl before had spoke about dongles, and we have I think we've asked about getting dongles and stuff, but see, once you get the tenants, do we pay the upkeep, or do they need to pay, like, is it a monthly bill or something?
Was that you, Louise, that mentioned the dongles?
I think it was me. The ones that we were looking to, it was almost like a pay-as-you-go thing, so it was like a top-up.
Okay.
So depending on how much data we got, I think we talked about maintaining them for a certain period of time. We did used to use them when we were out and about. We used to use them for we've got SP4s. Before you were able to link them to your phone and make your phone a Wi-Fi hotspot or whatever. We used to use them, but the issue was then how much data did we buy, or how much data did we buy? Were the tenants able to use it for their own use? I was trying to argue that they should be able to, because if I can get them to use it for their own use, then they're more likely to get better at actually using the whole package, and therefore more likely to engage with us. So there's been lots of going backwards and forwards, but at the moment I'm trying to get, even if I can get some younger people on. A lot of the older tenants are so used to seeing us, because we're community based, they're so used to seeing us all the time anyway. And it's the sort of thing, I know if I popped along to their house, I could get them on the tablet, but obviously because of COVID, we've just not been able to do that. You know, literally live 5 minutes away. I could walk to most of their houses in 5 minutes. But we just, at this moment in time, can't do it. So
I mean, what I would say as well is, remember, for TPAS members, we have a thing called Members Query. So if you are quite new to the role and you come across something that maybe you're not too sure about, just send us a wee query and we can send it round all our members and kind of see what their experience of. So for example, what Stephanie's talking about, the dongles, because that's obviously a new thing, and it's to find out, obviously, do you take out a contract, or do, as you say, do you maintain it as a landlord, or do you know what I mean? So I mean, that's definitely a good thing to share with people, and what your experience has been. Grace, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, because we're just starting out, and this video will help because it's been recorded for people who couldn't make it, because we too have a digital access problem for our community,
Right.
as educating them about tenancy participation. So I heard about the panel, what was that? People's panel from Dolina. Yeah, so just to share these practices, maybe I should ring you to perhaps try and arrange something with you to have some kind of meeting or something specific to our group. But I don't know how we're going to sort out the digital access bit. But yeah, we're still learning.
That's the thing, but we're all learning now. I mean, although myself and Delina both work for TPAS, I mean, this is definitely a new way of working for us, because usually we'd be setting up meetings with different landlords and arranging events and stuff. And as you know, we've had to cancel our conference and stuff. And I don't know if anybody's been to any of our conferences before, but we have one. It's called the Housing Professionals Conference, so that's only for staff, which is a bit like this. We all kind of learn off each other, and it's so good for networking and getting to know other officers as well. And you find that everybody kind of learns off each other, and it is a really, really good experience. And then we have the tenants conference as well, which is a mix of staff and tenants. And likewise, the tenants all learn off each other, so the tenant groups kind of learn off each other as well. So it's all about networking, and we all, I mean, you think you know it all, and then you hear an idea and you think that's great, and it's something that you'd never considered for your own tenants. So yeah, we are all, it is a job that you're just constantly learning, so that's just to be going forward. Okie dokie, so thanks very much everybody for joining us. I've put a wee link on the chat. It's just a wee survey monkey just for your feedback, and also for any suggestions for any future disco chats or webinars. So anything you want to learn more about or whatever, certainly let us know, and we'll see if we can slot it in. Okay, but thanks very much for coming along. We did run over a wee bit there, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, then.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.